The Persians purchased the silk, but then, in what was intended as an offensive gesture, intentionally burned it in front of the merchants. This was the start. Turkic people,
guys,
well known in the
just
West.
woke up again, but
Establishment of
Gök Turks. This was suggested to me by someone. I don't even feel like
which lasted over
saying
half
who,
a
but
millennium, functioning as the antagonist
super nationalist Turkish guy. That's all I remember about him.
in Western Europe's historical story. Almost 1,000 years earlier, the first Turkic state to use the term in a political manner burst onto the scene in a dramatic way and formed the great empire of the Gök Turks. After rising to power in the middle of the 6th century, the Gök Turks became one of the most powerful nomadic groups.
Yo, why is this picture so hard?
Welcome to our first video on the nomadic Gök Turks and their rise, fall, and impact on the early Middle Ages. Shout out to The Ridge for sponsoring this video.
Ridge? No, bro. Guy, you should like donate me some money, please.
Before we start
oh my goodness.
kaganates, we must first examine a few of the mythological origin stories of the people that ruled them, emerging from the deep, remote expanse of the eastern steppe. Unfortunately, we have few written records of the nomadic Turks themselves, but Chinese sources, such as the Chou Shu and Pei Shi, give us a glance from a settled civilization's point of view of what the origins of the Turks were perceived to be. With slight modifications between each text, this so-called legend of the Grey Wolf goes like this. After a devastating raid on his home village, a young surviving boy is mutilated and then thrown into a marsh by the attackers and is left to die. Then the boy encounters a she-wolf, which nurses the injured child back to health and acts as a parent.
What?
Living in a cavern for some years, the wolf is impregnated by the now young man and subsequently gives.
Nah, bruh. No. Nah, bruh. Nah. What in the world, bro? I'm like 2 minutes into this already. Yo. Oh, nah. No. I can't say that word. I gotta keep my videos monetized. Nope. What in the world did I just hear, bruh? Oh my goodness.
Gives birth to 10 half-human, half-wolf
What
boys.
in the
Several
world?
generations later, the first Turkic people.
No. This is not okay. I don't care if this is folklore or not, bro. There's no way people like throughout freaking centuries of hearing this folklore or whatever tale just hears this and thinks to themselves, oh yeah, this is okay, this is completely fine. No.
Emerge from the cavern and eventually become blacksmiths of the Juan, otherwise known as the Roran or Avar Kaganate. Another legend is preserved only in isolated collections compiled around 860, known as the Yuyang Sasu. The ancestor of the Turks in this legend, known as Shemu Shele, lives in a cavern and has a relationship with the daughter of a lake spirit. One day, as the Turks prepare for a hunt, the lake spirit's child states that if Shemu manages to kill a white deer with golden horns by arrow, she will remain with him forever, but if he misses it, their relationship would end. During the hunt, it is instead one of Shemu's followers who kills the deer, and is subsequently decapitated by the chief. For taking the daughter away from Shemu, a tradition begins by which the descendants of the follower are decapitated in human sacrifice.
Bro, what in the oh my gosh, now, bro, what in the world? Bro, why in the world did you freaking recommend me, bruh?
Legends to political reality.
What the hell?
Turks first dominantly emerged onto the scene in the year 552 AD. The same year Narses won the Battle of Tagane against his Ostrogothic enemies in the west during the restoration of Justinian. We have covered that in our previous videos. In Central Asia, Bumin, leader of the Gök Turks, translated properly as Celestial Turks, subdued a revolt for his Roran overlords and asked as a reward for a daughter of the ruling tribe in marriage. However, the Kagan refused this request on the grounds that Bumin's people were just blacksmith slaves and therefore were unworthy of the honor. There is a large amount of evidence that Bumin's Turks actually were originally a group of metallurgists involved in the industries of mining and processing iron, and that the aforementioned caverns of Turk mythology were in fact mines, where they worked in service of the Roran. Nevertheless, the refusal infuriated Bumin, and he led a revolt which dethroned the last Roran Kagan and drove the remainder west, where they possibly became the Pannonian Avars. The Gök Turk Kaganate was born, ruled by the Ashina clan, with Bumin as its first high ruler. The founder's reign was not an extensive one, as he died in the same year, to be succeeded by a son known as Kwolo, who ruled only for a scant few months before he too died. Kwolo's successor, Muhan, did not die immediately, becoming Kagan in late 553 and quickly eradicating any remnant of the old Roran. The gigantic nature of the Gök Turk realm meant it could not be
oh my gosh! Oh my gosh, that is huge, bigger than I thought. The Turkic realm was like central, basically around modern Central Asia today. Golly, didn't know it stretched all the way to what's now freaking Mongolia and almost to the freaking Korean Peninsula and Yellow Sea. Wow.
Just one single man. So, an informal division of power occurred, in which the late Bumin's brother, known as Istami, would rule the western segment of the Kaganate as a Yabgu, essentially a subordinate lord, located in a traditional nomadic camp near Karashar. While this western sub-realm was mostly autonomous and independent in practice, Istami was still under the nominal and symbolic sovereignty of the main imperial Ashina dynasty in the east, the line of Bumin. Muhan ruled the titanic eastern regions, probably from the area of modern Mongolia, the heart of the empire, where the legendary Wolf Cavern and sacred lands of Turkic ancestry were located. Therefore, almost from the moment it was created, the Gök Turk realm was a bicephalous entity, containing two centers of power in the east and west. Now, with two centers of power and two practical rulers, the Turkic Kaganate could embark on blistering military conquests from multiple angles, and set to doing so with great speed. In the east, the direct Ashina line subjugated two primary rival nomadic nations. The first of them was the Khitans, a proto-Mongolic people inhabiting areas northeast of China, who would play a key role in later centuries. In addition, they absorbed the fearsome Kyrgyz people into their state, tribes which would eventually give their name to the modern nation-state of Kyrgyzstan.
Oh!
Deeds of Istami and the Western Turks in more detail, because they dealt—
I met like one person from Kyrgyzstan. That guy was a weirdo. I'm not even gonna cat with you, bro.
with the record-keeping civilizations of the West more frequently, such as Eastern Rome and the Persians. As we discussed in our episode on the White Huns, it was a deadly alliance between the Gök Turk Yabgu Istami and Persian Shah Khosrau, which eventually crushed the once hegemonic Hephthalite Empire between 557 and 560.
Yo, Hephthalites!
Bringing about a common border between the two states. All seemed well and
Hephthalites, bro. Goats! I gotta learn more about them. I'm not gonna lie to you, bro.
peaceful. But then, sometime before 568, the Turks sent a commercial expedition of Sogdian merchants, led by a man named Manyak, to Persia, in order to request permission to sell Gök Turk-acquired silk in the Sassanid Empire. In essence, the Turks wanted to usurp control of the ever-lucrative silk trade, which had previously been dominated by the Hephthalites. The Persians purchased the silk, but then, in what was intended as an offensive gesture, intentionally burned it in front of the merchants. This was the start of trouble for both people.
Whoa! Oh, heck nah. I would not let that slide.
To open relations, the Turks sent another mission to Persia. this time actually consisting of native Turkic merchants. However, in violation of the traditional law of diplomatic immunity, they were then murdered by the Persians, an act which led to war between the Kaganate and the Persian Empire. It reminds one of the acts committed by the Khwarezmian governor of Otrar before Genghis Khan destroyed his realm. Sassanid Persia was more fortunate, and the war eventually ended in around 571 in a stalemate, because the Turks could not dislodge the Sassanids from a chain of border fortresses. Despite this though, things remained tense. Advised by their new commerce-focused Sogdian vassals, the Gök Turks then attempted to bypass Persia entirely and establish links with the main recipient of silk directly, Byzantium.
Aha!
Embassies from the Gök Turks reached them in 558, seeking the return of the Avars who had not yet submitted, and a trade alliance with the Romans. In the year 568, Maniak, now serving as an emissary to the Romans, brought a more substantial trade delegation and was received by Emperor Justin II, who was extremely interested in this new enemy of Persia because his empire also was an enemy of Persia.
Of course.
On the return journey, Maniak was accompanied by a Byzantine counter-embassy led by a strategos named Symmachos, which was well received by the ruling Turkic chief. A later embassy in 572 was more bitterly received, as the Romans were accused of harboring the fugitive Avars, who the Turks considered their own rebellious subjects. The 19-year-long reign of Kagan Muhan ended in that same year, and left the throne to his brother Taspar. Taspar soon converted to Buddhism, which was one of the most successful proselytizing faiths in—
Look, I do so much talk about Islam, Christianity, etc., etc. Nobody talks about Buddhism. Freaking hell, nobody talks about Buddhism on my channel. Or I've never really done any reactions on Buddhism, man.
Asia,
oh my
and
goodness.
It was immensely popular among steppe peoples. Having done so, Kagan Taspar undertook a wide-ranging program of monastery construction and sponsoring the translation of Buddhist texts.
Wait. How does Buddhism work? How does... I remember I was reading on Buddhism once, I did not understand how it works.
From Chinese into Sogdian.
I don't even know how that's considered a religion, because I thought to be considered a religion you need to believe in some type of entity or something. I don't know.
And Turkic. So
I don't think Buddhism believes in that, right? I think they believe in I don't know, inner peace or something. I don't even know, bro. Someone go educate me, please.
Could utilize them more easily. These enlightened scholarly activities continued under the rule of Taspar's brother Nivar, who seems to have controversially taken the Gök Turk throne in a Kurultai during 581. While under his supervision the imperial court became an important center of Buddhist learning in the region, seeds of division were sown which were to prove fatal. After Taspar died, Muhan's son Apa had expected the reins of power to fall to him next, and was far from happy that Nivar had seized the Gök Turk Khaganate for himself. Seeking allies to help him reclaim his perceived birthright, Apa went to the Western Territories, where the subordinate Ashina rulers made their home. In the years since the now-dead Istami conquered the Hephthalites and made contact with Rome, the title of Yabgu in the west had fallen to a son known as Tardu. The angered Ashina claimant of the Eastern Turk throne made an alliance with Tardu in order to unseat Nivar, but the latter probably saw an opportunity to claim the whole Khaganate for himself. And so, the Gök Turk civil war, known as the Turkic Interregnum, began. This combined Western army marched east in an attempt to quickly defeat Nivar, and managed to gain some initial victories. It seemed like they would win, but then Nivar accepted the suzerainty of his father-in-law, Emperor Wen of the Sui dynasty, who had recently reunified China after centuries of division. With troops and support from the Great Empire in the east, Nivar sent his attackers back to where they came from. Unfortunately for the ambitious Tardu, Apa, son of Muhan, greatly desired a realm of his own to rule, and because of the failure to dislodge Nivar and a subsequent dispute about Silk Road trading rights, turned on his erstwhile ally. Tardu was chased from his own western domain and Apa then established what would become known as the Western Turkic Kaganate, a now fully independent state which was separate from Nivar's east. Tadu fled as far as the Chinese court in 585, and is invisible in history for a few years, until we see a letter from him written to Byzantine Emperor Maurice declaring himself the Lord of the Seven Races, Master of the Seven Climes. Unfortunately, he disappears from history entirely in 603.
So this is actually quite interesting because, when I watched my Byzantine Belisarius series, this is around that time, kind of, sort of, a bit afterward, of course, and I'm watching my early Muslim expansion. This is all happening. Like, I always used to wonder to myself, like, what the hell is going on in Central Asia and East Asia? Like, what is going on? I'm actually like learning about that, and that's actually quite cool. So this is very insightful, very, very insightful.
This turmoil within the Ashina clan was the end of any true unity that the Gokturk Kaganate might have ever possessed, and it was now fully divided into eastern and western halves, a state of affairs which the Chinese expertly exploited to their own benefit. We'll briefly go over the fate of the East first. In the words of Chinese Sui Shu, the Turks prefer to destroy each other rather than to live side by side. They have 1,000, nay 10,000 clans who are hostile and kill one another. Most of the short-lived Chinese imperial dynasties since 551 had chosen to pay the Turks off. Trade concessions, which were essentially the equivalent of paying tribute, were granted, with both Khagans Muhan and Tasba receiving a staggering 100,000 pieces of valuable Chinese silk per year from the northern Zhou in return for just a few horses. When the Tang assumed the Mandate of Heaven in 618, constant attempts were made to persuade or bribe Western Khagans to keep their more threatening eastern cousins occupied as the Tang strengthened. The final defeat of the Eastern Turks came through direct military defeat when, in the reign of Emperor Taizong, the forces of Khagan Hussein were totally crushed. The Turk ruler was taken prisoner and died in China. The Eastern Turks were now dependent on the Tang. Meanwhile, in the west, Khagan Apa didn't live long enough to enjoy fulfilling his aim of ruling his own realm. In a war with his eastern neighbours, Apa was taken prisoner by Nivar's successor and disappears from history. His successor in the Western Khaganate was Nilur, a mysterious figure about whom not much is known. We do know that Turco-Persian conflict was ongoing, because this nomadic leader might have been one Armenian historian Sebios describes as being killed in battle by Persian general Bahram Chobin in 589. Khagan Tong, who succeeded him, continued Turkic interference in Iranian affairs by embarking on an alliance with the Persians' Byzantine rival, with whom the Persians were embroiled in the famous 602–628 war. The Turks had demanded immense tribute in return for this military aid, and it was probably in part due to this that a Chinese visitor to the Western Gokturk court, Xuan Sang, was awed by the splendor of it, something not usually expected of the stereotypically austere nomads. While the reign of Khagan Tong was the brief golden age of the Western Gokturk Empire, it didn't last. After his death in 628, possibly at the hands of his mutinous Karluk vassals, the realm fragmented into a number of other weaker polities, including Onok, or the Ten Arrows. This state of affairs, possibly aided by intervention from the Chinese, allowed the Tang dynasty to march west and conquer the Western Khaganate in 657. After this, Emperor Taizong declared
did not know that Chinese stretched that far.
Himself Khagan of the Turks, and the last Western Khagan was buried on Chinese soil, just as his eastern cousin had been. The Gök Turks did not do well under Tang rule, and they quickly began to resent resettlement and servitude within the settled empire of the Chinese. Almost a century later, an author of an ancient Turkic inscription describes disapprovingly of how their leaders abandoned their own traditional titles and instead obeyed the Chinese emperor like slaves. This continued for around 5 decades, from 630 to 680, years remembered as a time of shame, degradation, and humiliation of a once proud and dominant people.
Bro, okay, this is what actually like kissing up to your freaking kissing up to the people who conquer you actually is, bruh. I have people who unironically look at me and tell me and try to shame me because I'm proud of my English heritage, and they're like, oh my god, you're kissing up to the people who conquered you. Like, bro, pick up a book, please, bro, because yes, some of my ancestors, because not all of them were African, obviously, I'm mixed race Creole, but yes, but when the Africans left, bro, okay, when they were put on the freaking slave ships, they all came from freaking different ethnic groups. So when they were put on the ships, like immediately, like all that tradition just went out the window, because one, they were all from all over the place. They just so happened to be in one spot, literally cluttered like animals, quite literally. And obviously, you know, Barbados was uninhabited. Okay, like the English literally designed, and with Dutch influence as well, designed and built the island from scratch. So the only thing that was on the island was, well, English heritage. That was it. It was impossible, quite literally impossible, to even like remotely like take anything out of whatever ethnic group. I don't know where my ancestors came from, I don't know what ethnicity, what tribe they were part in Africa. I don't know. All that went out the window, literally, because the people and their descendants, obviously their descendants that were born on the island, which is again uninhabited until the English literally built it from scratch. Like, of course, you know, like when your descendants are around that, obviously, you know, that's the only thing that they grew up on. So of course they're gonna obviously inherit that and be proud of that. I mean, people are so foolish. But this is how people imagine. I swear, this is how people imagine it when they see that I'm proud of my heritage. Like, do you think that something like this happens? Like happened. Sorry, they think that something like this happened to like my ancestors or whatever. And it's like, no. If anything, it was the other Africans who went and conquered them first, and they sold them off to the Europeans. They conquered a whole bunch of other people, and they sold them off to the Europeans for money. And then, you know, obviously when all the people from different places just are on one ship going to different islands, they ain't got time for cultural traditions or all that. Quite literally, all they gotta do is work, you know, until they die. As brutal as it sounds. But, you know, oh my, it really blows my mind how foolish people are. Let's continue, bruh.
The worst outrage, it is said, was the blood tribute, an obligation to fight in Tang wars of imperial expansion, of which a passage states, "Your blood flowed like a river, your bones were heaped up like a mountain, your bay-like sons became slaves, your ladylike daughters became servants." A pressure point was reached in the year 679, when a 2-year-long Turk revolt broke out. Though it was unsuccessful, a detachment of Turks under Ilturish fled into the Gobi Desert and established themselves in the Yinshan Mountains. Successful raids were carried out against the Tang in Shanxi between 682 and 687, and Ilturish proclaimed himself Khagan in that year, establishing the Second Turkic Khaganate. Bursting forth from the Yinshan mountain range, Ilturish's battle-hardened army retook the Turk heartland and subjugated the Uyghur and other tribes which had occupied it. The initially powerful Second Khaganate waged wars and exacted tribute from Chinese rulers
such that
as
comeback though.
Tian, but it was a short-lived empire and ceased to exist in the year 745 when its subordinated tribes rebelled, replaced by a Uyghur confederation which would eventually interfere in China in its own right.
Oh wow, well, so much for that.
Turk empires of the 6th to 8th century were but one series in a multitude of nomadic states emerging from the steppe. They had profound impacts which would ripple across the region and beyond forever after. This emergence of the Ashina clan-led Turks onto the scene in their more overt, dominant form essentially made Turkic languages and culture hegemonic on the steppe. Moreover, the sheer military power wielded by the Gök Turk Khagans was unmatched since the days of the ancient Xiongnu, and would not be equalled again until the great Mongol conquests. Perhaps the most enduring impact on and of the Turks would be their relation to Islam. Within a short time of the Muslim conquests, numerous steppe Turks brought to prominence by the Gök Turks would convert to the new faith and eventually become crucial factors in the Muslim world, ending up as Mamluk slave soldiers and eventually rising to create Turkic dynasties of their own, such as the Ghaznavids and eventually the Seljuks. But that is
boy.
Disintegration of central authority in the Western Gök Turk Khaganate led to a prominent tribe in the far western fringe, the Khazars, establishing their own autonomy and a long-lasting empire.
I've heard about the Khazar. Is it the Khazar Khanate? I've heard about them, yeah.
Exploits of which shall be the subject of our next episode.
Yo, Turkic history. Turkic history. Very, very, very interesting. I'm not gonna lie. Turkic history is super, super good. I'm never disappointed whenever I watch videos on Turkic history. It's honestly shameful to me personally that I never really like dive into Turkic history that much, bro. But again, that's why I like it when people suggest me videos to react to, because sometimes there's just things that I would probably love, but there's so much stuff on freaking like books on YouTube everywhere that obviously I'm not gonna be able to like see it all. Okay, like obviously not. Okay. And speaking of which, you made it all the way to the end of the video. If you got any suggestions for me to react to, man, go and suggest it to me in the comments. This video was a suggestion by someone. I'm too lazy to go and put who it is, but he knows who it is. Go like the video and subscribe for more reactions like this, man. Go check out my other reactions on my channel if you like what I have to say in my videos, man. Thank you for watching and goodbye.